Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I'm your host, Tamara. Today we are discussing our February Buddy Read thriller title. If you would like to see this in video format, head on over to Patreon and you can watch this and see our pretty faces along with no commercials, no ad breaks. If you don't have Patreon or you're not interested in Patreon, you can also check out the audio version on the Spreaker app. If you sign up as a supporter, you'll have access to the after shows and other exclusive content in audio only. If you prefer video, including reading vlogs and other things that require you to see it, you'll need to hop on over to Patreon. You can also join me and my two co-hosts over on the Book Clubs app for even more book chats. Please subscribe and like the podcast wherever you are listening. If you'd like to reach out to me, you can find me almost everywhere at Shelf Addiction. Joining me today is feature co-host Classy from the Bookish Virtual Assistant. Welcome back, Classy.
Hey, Tamara. Happy February.
Happy February. And yes. So, of course, tell everyone where they can find you online.
You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and X under the Bookish Virtual Assistant, as well as Classy Green. On Instagram, it's Classy Green 1 because, somebody, tried to hack me. But yeah, just the one on Instagram. But yeah, you can find me over there. Come see a girl. Come check me out.
Yeah, going over to say hi to Classy.
Yes, please.
Okay, so before we begin, as always, we just want to remind you that with book chats, we talk full spoilers. Spoiler alert, you have been warned. Today, we are discussing the book Look Closer, written by David Ellis. The audiobook is narrated by Will Dameron, Hillary Huber, Elizabeth Garrett, and Steve West. It was published on July 5th, 2022 by G.P. Putnam Sons and Penguin Audio. The hardcover comes in at 448 pages, and the unabridged audio is 13 hours. Classy, would you kindly share the synopsis?
Absolutely. Simon and Vicky couldn't seem more normal. A wealthy Chicago couple, he a respected law professor, she an advocate for domestic violence victims. A stable, if unexciting marriage. But one thing's for sure, absolutely nothing is what it seems. The pair are far from normal, and one of them just may be a killer. When the body of a beautiful socialite is found hanging in a mansion in a nearby suburb, Simon and Vicky's secrets begin to unravel. A secret whirlwind affair, a $20 million trust fund about to come due, a decades-long grudge, an obsession with revenge. These are just a few of the lies that make up the complex web, and they will have devastating consequences. And while both Vicky and Simon are liars, just who exactly is conning who?
And you know what? This is a web. And if you're on Patreon, you can see it. Okay, I had to make a little chart. I made an impromptu chart.
Yes.
I said this person to this person to that person, this over here, this over there. And I made some notes.
Look at you.
Because I'm like, whoa, okay, this is getting confusing. Yeah.
It was a lot.
Yes, so I'm ready to break it down. But first, high level, what did you think when you finished the audiobook?
Okay, because I wrote this down. This shit down. The long game.
That is a very long game.
Even the author's storytelling. And I loved it. Who is the con? Who? Lies are built on a sliver of truth. And I was here for all of it. It was a cat and mouse game at its finest.
Yes.
Nothing is what it seems. And just like the title said, look closer.
I wrote down 4 con artists trying to best each other. That's what that whole book was. 4 con artists trying to best each other,
you know basically. What else? November 3rd no longer holds the same importance to me. Because, November 3rd is usually like election day. But in this book, November 3rd was their 10th anniversary and the day they get that trust fund.
The trust money.
Yeah.
So, okay, now I've got to know. So you know me, I try to look for the obvious. And I even wrote down what chapter it was.
Okay.
It was in chapter 61. That is how soon, and I felt inklings before,
Mhm.
before that, but when I got to chapter 61, again, spoiler alert, I said they're in it together. It's they're
Yeah.
together. It would
Yeah.
that was solidified as what happened in 61. I said, no. I'm like, it still doesn't make sense all the way quite yet,
Yeah.
but they're doing this together.
Right, and that's what yeah, and I felt the same way too, like, yeah, they're in it, but the way he wrote it, like, the diaries and the
Mhm.
flashbacks, he did make you question, like, "Are they? Is she getting revenge on him? And who's get" yeah, but yeah, it and that was the great part about his writing is even though we knew they were together in on it, it didn't take away from the story for me. It
Mm-mm.
did not take away from the story because it still was like, "But why?"
But yeah, why and how? Like
Yeah.
how? And
Yeah.
it came together in the end. And the thing is, so like with Vicky's character, at the very beginning of the book, she is helping battered women. She works at a shelter. I'm
Mhm.
like, this woman is so nice. This conflicts so bad with what's happening. I'm like, now wait, something is wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. I picked up on that too because 'cause I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, like, her sister is something up with the sister and her mark,
Mm-hmm.
Vicky's mark, like, I'm like, "They're too damn smart here." Like, she just didn't pick homeboy, Christian, AKA Nikki.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but yeah, it was and when you can write a story and like you and I, if we can figure out the who, why, what, when, whatever, we like, I already figured this out.
Yeah.
But this one, this
It was
David Ellis,
convoluted.
man,
Yeah.
David did I applaud you, David. And you might could kind of tell from my feelings about this book. I mean, there's some plot holes and all those type of things, but I think he did a really great job on keeping my interest, the convolution, like you were saying. I mean, you did a web. You did a
Mm-hmm.
damn.
I
You did
had
a
to at first.
yes.
I'm like, wait a minute. Like, and I noticed, and this was the killer, and I noticed this like maybe about 30 or 40%, maybe 35%. I said, wow. So everyone has a point of view
Hmm.
except for Lauren.
Yeah.
So I'm like, so Lauren, the person who's murdered, we don't hear from.
No, not at all. And that yeah. And the thing is like as someone who's doing the audiobook, we already know that there's 4 points of view, like ASAP,
Mhm.
because there's 4 narrators.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? But if you're
Yeah.
doing the printed version and you're reading, you don't
Mhm.
come across that until you come across the 4th character.
Mhm.
But yeah, that was like that plus part of reading listening to the book. And I don't know
Yeah.
if it's a plus or it was just like, oh, okay, so we, you know what I mean, because from us we're just like, okay, so it's 4 narrators, so that means
Yeah.
it's
So
4
it's
point of
for
view. So all of
mhm.
a sudden, like you were saying, my brain was already clicking like, what's going on? We got 2 men and 2
Yeah.
women.
Yeah, and it's actually really smart of the author to exclude Lauren because she is the linchpin.
Yeah.
She would have given away, even if he tried to hide it, we would know, like, all the things that Simon was doing, like, those okay, so when he was writing in this journal, I'm like, "What an asshole. Why is he writing in this journal?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And then suddenly I'm like the thing that triggered me that kinda told me so there were 2 things that told me that Vicky and Simon were working together. It
Okay.
first hit me when it came out that Vicky knew who Gavin was. I'm like,
Mm.
"Wait a minute, how do you know?" And then it really like, after that, it started tumbling out that she knew everything about this guy, and I'm like,
Are you saying
"Okay."
Christian or because Gavin
His
was what? Christian's
his
friend. Yeah.
friend. So
Yes.
when he started, like, dealing with this, he's like, "I know he told Gavin," or "I know Gavin's helping him. So I'm like, well, she's done a deep dive on this guy.
Mm-hmm.
She knows a lot about him, but how? How does she know all this? And why? So I'm like, she's trying to, and I'm I'm like, she is. So on one hand, it's pretty plain to me that Vicky is playing what's his name?
Christian.
Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Vicky is playing him, and it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
But Christian is so big-headed, he can't see it. But on the flip side, for a long time, I thought that Simon and Lauren were hooking up. And I said, how? And I'm like, why? And especially when it came out that Lauren was hooking up with his daddy, I said, no,
Yeah.
he's sleeping with her. Why?
And that didn't
No.
come now, I figured that out really quick, that she was the one, that
Uh-huh.
Lauren was the mistress. I figured that
Mm-hmm.
out pretty quick. But, they didn't expose that until, ooh, what was
It
it,
was late.
80%, 90% of the book? But you could kinda tell. But then David distracted me with his writing, that I was just, I just totally forgot that I think Lauren is the one that was the mistress and Simon is getting revenge, because he made Simon so freaking nerdy and desperate for love, the way he wrote it, that this guy was so desperate to love Lauren, or he had a crush on her so big that he would, in my mind, while reading as a reader, that he would just forget that, yeah, you liked my dad, but I just thought you were just so much.
And then it came out that she slept with him on his 18th birthday.
Yes, exactly. It was just a birthday gift. It was
What a
just a
skank.
birthday gift.
She like, don't think we're gonna be together.
I was just gifting you some coochie. That was birthday coochie.
It was happy birthday to you. But I don't want to be with you. Thank you.
That's all it was. I separated the 2. And you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's that writing, that here he kinda let us know that she's a possible mistress, but she
Mm-hmm.
also gave him some birthday sex, basically. So is she? Is she not? But
Mm-hmm.
he was so geeky and nerdy. I mean, to make himself calm, he figured out equations and different patterns with words and what rhymed. So, you made it think like he was kind of like Rain Man, kind of, like I think
Mm-hmm.
somebody said, I think Christian described him as someone who could quote the quadratic equation.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I enjoyed Mr. Ellis's writing, because he threw me off a few times. Even though
Mm-hmm.
I knew a few things,
Mm-hmm.
he still distracted me, and I enjoyed the distraction.
Yeah. I think he did a good job making the journal believable for as long as he did. And
Yeah.
he explained later how the character was able to do that. Because
Mhm.
I think he was putting his feelings for Vicky in there.
Yeah.
How he felt about Vicky, how he would have been with Vicky if she had said yes to him. So,
Yes.
like the character said, there's always some truth in
There's
here,
always a little truth
which, yeah.
to
So,
every
I
lie.
think that the author was very smart in how, like, it sounds ridiculous,
It
but,
does.
but I was still like, oh my God, why is he writing? The first thing I'm like, why in the hell are you writing this down in a journal? I couldn't figure it out.
And not just any journal, a green
A
ass
green
journal.
journal. Hmm.
So fucking obvious. And
And
I didn't
so,
even read this part before you get started. Like, I didn't even read the last sentence in Goodreads. It described it as part Gone Girl, part Strangers on a Train. Look Closer is a wild roller coaster ride. And I will have to give him credit. This might be one of the few books that you could say was kind of close to Gone Girl, with the diary entries and all those type of things.
mhm.
Because a lot of people like to use that as a selling point. And I'm glad I did not read that prior to us reading this book. I didn't even see that.
But I honestly, so outside of the journal, I didn't have any Gone Girl ties. I
Yeah.
couldn't figure out anything else.
Yeah.
And Girl on a Train, I read that a very, very long time
Yeah.
ago. I couldn't really tell what was Girl on the Train.
Maybe
So,
just the flashbacks. That's all I could think of
mhm,
because with his flashbacks, that was something that I really did like. Like it seemed like the closer we got to the end, his
mhm.
flashbacks became more frequent and shorter, and the thriller suspense part seemed to amp up because there was at one point in the chapter, and it was kind of hard because you're doing audio where he he was reading we were listening to Simon, and then Simon's all of a sudden slips back into the time where he's
Mhm.
talking to his dad,
Mhm.
and then he slipped back into the current time, and I was like,
Mhm.
ooh, I like this. I would love
Yeah.
to see how that was written in print because the narration amped it for
I wonder if
me.
it was italics because I
Yeah.
did go back looking for the ebook on
Mhm.
Everand or where some other places, and I could not find
Yeah.
it. So I'm like, "Oh, I wanna see the ebook. What does it look
Libby,
like?"
because I
Okay.
haven't gone back yet, but I think Libby has it. If Libby doesn't have it, it used to be called Access 360 in my library. Now it's Boundless. Everybody has new apps now. But yeah, it was yeah, but you're right. I did like that. And I think that was probably the girl on the train thing cuz what didn't she have like amnesia or something, the girl on the train, or she fell and
Well, she forgot something, and every time she passed the house, it's like she would have memories or something. She
mhm.
would pass these townhomes,
Yeah,
remember? And
and then
she
it
would start
flashback. Yeah.
yeah.
And this I mean, right, he didn't have any memory loss. He was just he was diabolical, babe.
He is someone you never want to be an enemy. But the thing is though, even though when they okay, so when Jane, who is the detective or sergeant, she's a sergeant,
Mhm.
as she was getting closer, I didn't want her to win. I actually was
Mm.
and this is different. I
What?
found myself rooting for Simon and Vicky. I wanted them to get away with it. I said, "She's gonna figure it out, but
Yeah,
it's
'cause
not gonna be enough. It's not gonna be enough."
no,
And
because they're
that's
too damn
exactly what
smart.
happened.
Yeah. This was one of the few times where you didn't have a bumbling Barney Fife police department.
Mhm.
They were good. They were on it, but like you were saying, Simon and Vicky were just 10 steps ahead of them.
Yeah, they were so like, he thought so far, like, he had contingent for a contingent for a contingent. And so just like and the perfect example is when Jane came with that stupid, champagne and the 2 wine glasses. He
Yes.
like, "What's this about? I don't understand what's happening."
Right?
I said, "Oh, no," because 'cause I'm like, obviously, Lauren's fingerprints was on it. Instantly, I'm like, "Oh," because the St. Louis police office called and said, "We got prints." And I'm like, "Oh, no."
But he had saved them for what? How many years? You wanna talk about
Decade
long game.
19 years or some shit, he saved it.
Y'all, this man in his long game.
He
You
got a
want
very long game.
man. And I think Lauren, even not Lauren, Vicky had said he can hold a grudge. But she
Mhm.
said and that was the other part, like she said, "But you think he thinks he's the only one that can hold a grudge." And at that point, I was at one point, like you were saying, I knew they were working together, but when she made that comment, I was like, "Whoa, is
Mhm.
did he do something to her and she's trying to get back at him?" But her grudge wasn't with Simon. Yes.
It was
I
with
was like,
Christian.
"Yes!
Yeah.
Girl." I
'Cause
was
that was the
like,
piece that was missing until the very end. I'm like, "Okay, so she helped you with this, but what's her motivation?"
yes.
Especially because when we find out this whole thing was over $21 million. And then at the end, I'm like, "Simon gives up the money. He doesn't keep any of it." Vicky doesn't want any of it. I'm like, these are good people doing bad things.
Things, exactly. Yeah.
And they're not out here
And
killing
that's
and
where they
discriminatory. They went for who they thought deserved it.
yeah, because I mean, they met up in that, support group
It's
for
a grief
suicide.
support. Yeah.
Yeah, grief support,
Mm-hmm.
and it was, it was, kinda like the, oh gosh, not Robin Hood, but, just trying to kinda like a Batman kind of feeling where we're gonna get the bad guys, and we're gonna kinda lurk in the background, but
Yeah, but it was their own revenges personally, their
mhm,
own Christian was a horrible person. Horrible.
very.
And so was Lauren. Lauren was a gold digger in the most traditional way.
Christian
She
recognized her ASAP. Soon
mhm.
as Vicky said, this bitch got me.
Like, she trying to steal my
and,
man.
and
She trying
Christian
to get him
like
to divorce me. He like, hold up, this bitch ain't getting the money.
right, he's
She
like,
not getting the
she's
money.
doing to Simon what I'm doing to Vicky. I was like, yeah,
Yeah,
game recognized game.
exactly. He's like, she not gonna win. This my money.
21 million, and Vicky knew it. Like the stakes were high.
Yeah. And I think, so when she found out, remember how she went to Christian all distraught. She had the laptop, she had the diary, and when she went into Simon's office and it was just left out, I'm like, "Nah, he didn't just leave that out. He didn't just leave that out for
Well,
her."
he was running late, that little part. And I
No.
was like, mm-mm.
That's evidence, you just don't leave it, and she went, sat down, and just put in the password. I'm like,
Yeah, that was
"Okay."
odd to me too at first that
Yeah,
you're having an affair and your wife knows where passwords are?
I know. That was weird. So, like, some things really were loud, like flashing, look here, this is a clue. Because I'm
Mhm.
like, I don't care how in a hurry he is, he would hide that journal if he didn't want her to see it.
Yeah, because I mean, that was glaring.
Mhm.
That was damning evidence,
Mhm.
I don't care how late you're running, mm-mm, mm-mm, you don't do that.
Girl, I mean, if I found some kind of journal like that, I might turn into, like, a killer because don't let me find no mess like that. It's gonna be on and popping.
Yeah, because that
It's gonna
wasn't
be
just so
Medea with
simple.
the skillet. I mean,
Yeah, because it wasn't just some, like, little
mm-mm,
damning evidence. This
this was a
was
freaking soliloquy, a love story.
yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, but I don't want to hurt my wife."
Right, and you about to make me lose 21 mil bruh,
Yeah,
mm-mm, though
yeah,
that's like a perfect plot for murder.
yeah. And he was like, I told her I didn't want to do this to Vicky. She deserves the money, but then she comes with the pregnancy
It's just
story. I'm like, oh my god, what the hell is
yeah,
going on?
and the way David painted
Yeah.
Simon, I mean, he was, from high school, he was this little dorky, skinny
Oh,
little thing that the wrestlers was tossing,
the
you
one guy.
yeah, that he was just tossing and he was geeky. He was what? The valedictorian. So it just made him seem like he wasn't attractive. Um, he
He
fell
was
in
just
love
small.
quickly. Yeah,
He was
he was just a
small.
tiny little man who fell in love quickly, very smart. Was lucky to have someone who loved him so, and who fell in love with a beautiful woman and or beautiful women because Vicky was beautiful as well. So
Mhm.
I love the way he painted Simon, his character, as far as geeky, and then, like you said, the one that this is the one person that you think you could get over on,
Mhm.
but who would know that his long game, like
Well, he as you said, he was a valedictorian. He's
mhm,
very smart. Both of his parents are lawyers.
yeah,
His mother was like she was extremely good at practicing law, better than his
her dad,
father.
yeah, yeah,
So there might have been some, nature kicking in there as well.
yeah,
He's a very intelligent. He knows the laws. I mean, who is the best person to get away with murder? A lawyer.
yes, Yeah, and I loved in those last couple of scenes because they were the let me just tell okay, I'm sorry. I'm just like gushing about this book, but like the detective chapters are brilliant.
Mhm.
When they did okay, let me just go back a little bit. Some of the things I loved about this book. It's set in Chicago. I'm
Mhm.
from Illinois. When they started pinging the towers, that's right where I work. Girl, I was just like,
You're like, "Oh, no.
"What?
I know. Oh, no."
Daily Center, what?
Have you seen
Thompson,
that
what?"
restaurant he was stopping at?
Girl, yes, I was just like, "I know where that" ooh, in the Chicago Title, the building where he kept saying he had to go to the Chicago Title, and I was just like, I was glued. I was so tuned in. And then when the detective part where they were doing the cell towers, and I
Mhm.
was like, that's why his ass kept going to that place to make his phone calls. Those detective scenes, and we've read a lot of books.
Mhm.
Let me just say this. We have read a lot of books, and there are not too many. We have talked about some dumb ass detectives. But this one, when they were not matriculating, but when they were doing the pings and saying how I was just like, this is good. This is
Honestly, and
good.
it all spanned, like, the author made the connection so easily and smooth when we found out about how the kid poisoned himself, quote unquote, in high
Yes.
school,
Yes.
and the other police department is like, "He did that to that kid, and we think he killed his father, but we can't prove
Prove
it."
it.
And when they were talking about the stuff that they had and couldn't nail him on, she was listening.
Mhm.
Everybody else is like, "But the evidence." She's like, "Okay, look, the evidence can be real. Two things can be true.
True. Yeah.
The evidence does say this, but that doesn't mean he wasn't pulling someone's chain. It's
Exactly.
in his wheelhouse to do this." And
Yeah.
no one wanted to believe her.
No. No, not at all. And she was like, "Wait a minute, I remember this kid. I remember," and when you start thinking back as a the revenge part that here you have this kid who was basically ridiculed his whole high school time the whole time he was in high school basically because the wrestlers start messing with him when he was a freshman.
Mhm.
So, and I can't remember how old the wrestler was,
They
but
weren't in the same grade, so
right,
he
he
had
was
a couple of
older.
years with them probably, and then he
Yeah,
was
but that
yeah.
image
Uh-huh.
follows you know what I mean? Like, nobody forgets. And then to
Mhm.
find out and basically, I bet you nobody messed with him after what he did to the wrestler.
Well, he did say he grew to, like, 5'11", right?
Mhm, and
So he
got
did
that
get some
runner
height on
body.
him. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's a runner. So he just changed, and he probably changed right after that kid graduated, but he couldn't get a scholarship or something. He lost out on wrestling because he had a drug in his system
mhm,
that would hide other drugs.
yeah, and right, and in sports, you can't that
That's a no-no.
yeah, good for
And
you.
he knew this fool is gonna take this Gatorade every fucking day.
Yep. "Where's my
If I have
Gatorade? You
2,
got
he'll
me a
take
Gator."
2.
And the other thing was that that drug lasted in his system so long that he couldn't tell exactly
Mhm.
when.
When he had what happened, because he did that to him every day, and he probably didn't even think it was him because he took his shit every day.
Yep. And then you drank other yeah, even though yeah.
So
Yep.
he didn't, like, draw a direct line to him, you know?
Yeah. Every day. So yeah, I really enjoyed David Ellis's writing. I loved his long game because he had to set up I think we even talked about that you were like, it didn't pick up until I can't remember what chapter I was on. But, it took a little time, but he really had to set the scene, and I enjoyed his opening scene. Like, that you wanna talk about a banger of a scene?
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
It was crazy. And then so coming out of that, then we hear about like Vicky's experience, like doing crazy, like being a sex worker. I'm like, oh my God, what is happening? Who?
Who
Why?
are these people?
Yeah.
Who are these people? Because the story opens up with Lauren's dead body
Mm-hmm.
hanging in her own home. And
Yes.
Simon is there and leaves. And you just like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm immediately drawn in.
Yeah.
Um,
And then it flips right away to that hospital where
mm,
she's trying to talk someone into coming to the home. So we switch perspectives really quickly.
yeah. Right, because
Yeah.
Vicky is a social was this social or for domestic abuse? What did I think I
I
mentioned?
think she just works for that domestic, like, the home that they hide the women. I don't think she's actually a social worker.
Yeah, they said, yeah, she's an advocate for domestic
Yeah.
violence victims.
Mhm.
Yeah, so right, just those two different, it was yeah, I was drawn in.
That's why I'm
And
like, I could not believe anything that about Vicky because I'm like, she is two very different people. What is happening?
mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
clearly,
Yeah.
she she can't be the con woman and be this really sweet, let me save the women people. Like, how can you be two things? But that's because one was fake.
Mhm. Exactly. Almost kind of reminds you of what was the one story we read where the girl was a grifter and she conned the teacher and her stepdad.
Oh,
Kind of, you
yeah.
know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
those kind of things. But yeah, it and it was a little slow burn for the first part, but he drew my attention in so quickly that I just wanted to know what was gonna happen, and he didn't disappoint.
Yeah. Okay, actually, I think this is a great time to take a quick break. You guys, by listening to these commercials, you are supporting the podcast. While you're listening, head on over to Amazon and pick up the book review journal available now. You can still, it's not too late to start a new journal for this year. And we'll be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by the Shelf Addiction merch store. Check out all the Bookish t-shirts, notebooks, mugs, and more. Don't miss out on these original designs, perfect for any book nerd. Support the podcast and visit shelfaddiction.com/merch and pick up your next favorite Bookish item. All right, welcome back, guys. Let's pick up where we left off.
I enjoyed the story. I may have to look. I'm not sure. I don't think this is his debut novel. I believe he may have written with James Patterson or something, but I'm really glad we picked this book. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, me
I
too.
am really glad. This is February, and in my opinion, we got a good one.
Yeah, and I do think like people who would enjoy this book are people who like a very twisty story, something that has a lot of groundwork laid before that, the guts really starts. And that
Yeah.
groundwork is important because the tension becomes so high at a certain point.
Hmm.
And that pays off. So, like, all the work that he did on the onset, it pays off. And that's like what's difficult for a lot of authors to do.
Yeah.
They have this really intense situation with a lot of story, a lot of characters, a lot of detail,
Yeah.
and the pace never improves. They
Yes.
have a hard time tying all the loose ends, but David Ellis was able to do that. So it
Yeah.
made the payoff worth it, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. And right. And for POVs, I believe, that's hard, in my opinion, to um keep it all together and to tie it in cohesively. I mean, you had to do a web, of
Mhm.
tying everybody together. And when you did do that, was it cohesive to you?
Yeah, so I did this like in the first quarter of the book. So I did it early on because I felt like there was something I was missing.
Mhm.
Because, like, even, Conrad, who was Lauren's husband, we had a little bit of him, but not much. So I was kind of trying to figure out who the couples were and who was sleeping with who. And why this person was trying to, get the money and all this stuff. I was trying to like figure that out. So it helped me. And then once I had it down, I had the characters. I wasn't struggling with them once I took the time to just write it down.
Right, right. It was like follow the money. And it did
Yeah.
get a little convoluted because it was like, but her husband has money.
Mhm.
But yeah, but then, when you realize he was gonna divorce her, she was just and she needs the money. She's like, "Oh,
Mhm.
I'll just find more money."
I'll just move on to the next one.
Mhm. And lo and behold,
Mhm.
who lives nearby? But
Mhm.
my former boss's son, who I know has money. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. What a mess. What a mess. These characters are a mess. And
Yeah.
that's that was what made it like so fun.
And that's the funny part is like here you got these messy characters and you still were rooting for them at the end. Which I mean,
Yes.
I'm not against that. But I'm just like, like you were saying, like I was rooting for Simon and Vicky.
Look, that doesn't happen often.
No, when
Usually
you
I
said
want
that, my
the
mouth was
villains to get theirs, right?
yes.
Because Vicky did kill someone. She point blank shot somebody in the head. She shot him. She shot Christian and said deuces and left. And I'm
But
like,
nothing of it. But, I had a feeling she was because she was like, when she started faking, she was like, "Yeah, because he thinks, his big basically, he really thinks I love him with his big penis and his
mhm.
abs," and she was just,
Look, the minute she said, "Take a shower, relax," I said, "Oh no!" And then he chugged the wine. I said, "You are drugged, sir. You are drugged." I knew immediately. And then he's like, "Oh, why am I so tired?" She's like, "Aren't you tired?" I'm like,
right,
"Oh,
she was all in his face. I was just like, "Oh, shit."
oh my god!"
Because
She
she was,
just
like,
did that.
sitting on him, like, in his face, right? Wasn't
Mhm.
yeah.
She was like, "So can you imagine sitting on someone's lap, facing them with a gun under their chin?" And she under their chin and you're facing them, and that is how she killed him, and that
Yeah.
is how, like, he was able to, like, brush her hand and the shot went this way because she was facing him and it went "Ching" to the side, and then she
Yeah.
came back and shot him.
Yeah, and you're in a drugged induced state looking at somebody, like,
Yeah.
who you think cares about you.
Mm.
Eek.
Yeah,
But
but
he
that's what he
deserved but he
deserved. He got what he
I
deserved.
was just about to say, I was like, "But he deserved every bit of it."
Yeah, that's why I'm like, "Dude, what goes around come around. You deserve that. You deserved every second."
I had no sympathy for him, none.
No, none.
I mean, how many
Now
women had he conned?
it doesn't even matter because his name, and I'm surprised the author used his own name because when he was conning Vicky's sister, he was going by the name David. I'm like, the author used
Ah.
his own name because he
Oh.
was Christian, he was Nick, he was David, he was some other things.
Yeah.
He's probably been doing this for years, and his little friend has been helping him the whole time.
Yeah,
Gavin or
because
whatever.
Gavin he said Gavin was the coach and he was the player. So Gavin was kinda like the brains behind it, and Christian was the face because,
Hmm.
he had the good looks, he worked out. I think Christian said Gavin was a big scary looking dude basically. So he was the
Hmm.
behind the scenes man.
Yeah.
So yeah, so he was the brains and, Christian was the brawn.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were a team, but Christian also collected most of the money because he was doing most of the work.
Bang, bang, bang. He was getting he was
Mhm.
getting the sex and the ladies. And Kevin's like,
Yeah.
"Now what am I doing wrong? Hmm. I wonder why."
Gavin even tried it. So Gavin, at one point, he goes, because Vicky does not go back home, quote unquote. She goes back to her house. She leaves the state after Gavin basically confronts her about killing Christian and, not being truthful and lying about her name. And he gives her a couple good kicks to the ribs. And he goes to Simon's house to kind of tattle on her because she went missing. And he introduces himself as the FBI. And Simon's like, okay, this is that dude, Gavin. Okay, come on in. Come on
Right.
in.
Like, dude, I've been watching you guys.
Yeah.
And that was so odd too that they lived in the same area that Lauren lived in.
Hmm.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. So Gavin got run off, basically. He's like, oh, you feel free to stay and tell the police if you want to.
Got something for your
Explain
ass
that.
too. Right.
Yeah.
Got something
So,
for
I
your
mean,
ass.
even Gavin didn't even get what he wanted. He was trying to get 10 million. He's like, I'll just make it a cool 10 not to tell on you. It didn't work.
Right. It's like, come on, guys. You haven't figured this out yet that you are dealing with. But you always think you're smarter than somebody else, basically. He thought he was.
He
Mm-mm-mm.
thought he was. I mean, even so, but that's the thing. I think this is why I also rooted for Simon a little bit, because even when he was up for that full-time professor thing, he really
Tenure.
just, yeah, tenure. He just really wanted to do it right. He
Mm-hmm.
wanted to do the fair thing. And Vicky goes off and has her friends sleep with the guys,
Yeah.
the daddy of the person, or
His
some drama.
competition, yeah, and records it.
Yeah, and she's like, use this, and you'll get the job. And he's like, I don't want to use that. And he didn't get the job, but
But he did it the right way.
he did it the right way. So I'm like, he's not like, okay, yes, if you kill someone, that's absolutely bad. There's
Yeah.
no question. But I don't think he's not serial killer bad.
No.
He
Yeah.
was getting vengeance for his mother. He thought he was getting vengeance for his mother.
Yeah. And right, his mother and their legacy. I mean, this woman stole
Hmm.
6 million freaking dollars
Yeah.
that could have taken care of his mother for her home health care or just her health care period. So yeah, like you were saying, he was trying to um vindicate or get back what was done to his family. And he
Yeah.
did.
He did.
Yeah.
He really did.
I
Like, he
mean,
got that
granted,
girl taken out.
damn. I mean, swinging.
He walks in, he like, "Oh my god, she is hanging from the balcony, from the railing." He like, "What happened? Why he didn't use a gun?" I'm like, "Oh my god."
But
You walk in and expect to see someone on the floor from a gun,
shot, yeah.
wound, and here she is hanging from her banister railing.
Yeah.
Like, what?
And what perfect timing to do it on Halloween. It was just like every time I start thinking about this story, it just got even better. What perfect day to kill somebody but on Halloween, you know?
I
So
know.
you're going to open the door to strangers in costume.
Now look,
Yeah.
I was a little bit taken aback by the Obama
I know.
mask.
Yeah, I
I'm
know.
like, really? What, you got to make yourself black, sir, in
Yeah,
case anybody see you?
but you know what? I think it was because of the Chicagoland area.
I know
I
that's his.
know, yeah,
I
I
know.
know, but yeah, I thought about that too, and then I just kinda let it go because I was, it was Obama, it was his area, Chicago. He didn't look like too odd, but yeah, I thought that too. Yeah, the black
That's
man
what I'm
did
saying.
it.
And then when he puts the Grim Reaper costume on over, he still leaves the mask on because he like, I got double
Right,
protection.
we may need to check out David's, political his
Uh,
political stance, like
I don't know. Like, was that like tongue in cheek, or do you really like him?
exactly, I thought about that too. I was just like, "Okay, Imma let this slide because I like your writing, sir."
I always say two things can be true. I still be like, why you had to use him? You could have used anybody.
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean, unless he was just really trying to throw everything Chicago in there and he wasn't thinking about it like that, but we won't know because we don't know the writer. So
No. Yeah, because I mean, he threw everything possible about Chicago Cubs. Go Cubs, I'm a Cub fan. I am a diehard Cub fan. So, yeah, I was tuned in. I was dialed in, man. I was really dialed in. So
He didn't have any food about like Chicago
no,
though.
he didn't really. I think he mentioned one restaurant. That one didn't. I wasn't sure about. I haven't.
Vivios or whatever.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm gonna have to check that one out. Because
Yeah.
I think somebody even say highly recommend it or something. Oh, you know what else?
Mm.
Christian mentioned Basil Hayden whiskey, and that is one of my
Oh,
favorites. Girl,
okay.
I was like, did I just hear Basil Hayden? Pause. Let me go back. Because he had to drink some
Mhm.
whiskey before, because he was a
Mm.
chicken shit, basically.
He had to
Uh,
work himself up to murder.
I was like, David, you and
Mhm.
I have a lot in common. You're a Chicago Cubs fan. You like
Well,
Basil
look,
Hayden.
let's assume that those are facts and he just didn't check a bunch of Chicago stuff off a list.
Yeah, I
Let's
know.
make them fit.
Right. Well, he did a good job for this girl over here. I will
Well,
take
let's
it.
click on him. Is he from Chicago? Let's see. He is. Oh, he's a lawyer, of course.
Mm-hmm.
He went to law school in Chicago. He served as a House prosecutor and convicted Illinois Governor
Oh, Blagojevich. Really?
Blagojevich, yeah, in the impeachment trial before the Illinois
What?
Senate. He was
Girl,
elected to the Illinois Appellate Court in 2014. And he lives
girl,
outside
no
of
wonder.
Chicago with his wife and 3 children.
Okay, so he knows. Yeah, if he could help
He's
convict
legit. He probably likes.
yeah, Blagojevich. Ooh, that's a big case. See, I didn't look him up at all. I just kind of went with the flow because I'm like, he knows when he started naming the the historical sites of like, the Daily Center, the Thompson, all these places. I was just like, he got me sold. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, Blagojevich is. I'm gonna have to look him up.
He has written lots of books, but this is the first book that has gotten him noticed. And by that,
Notoriety. Okay.
because like this book, Look Closer, has over 35,000 reviews.
Wow.
All his other ones, the highest rating count I see amongst all his other books is 2,300.
Wow. And this book
So,
was 2022. Isn't that what
yeah.
you
Mhm.
listed in the stats,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Wow.
So he published before this. I think his last published book was 2013.
Really?
Yeah, so he was doing them in 01, 04, 05, 07, 11, 12, 13, 09.
Hmm.
But all of those, they did
They did.
not get the publisher did something different here.
Mm.
So I'm curious. So I'm gonna look at his other stuff. Okay, he was on Putnam before for his last book.
And that was
So he
what
must have got a different publicist or something.
yeah.
Something was different with this
Or
book.
his writing too,
Mhm.
for because those are some nice gaps. And I know he has like when I looked on Libby, because that's where I looked for the book at first. I had to get it on Audible because it was were you able to get it on Everand?
No, I think I ended up getting it on Audible.
Yeah, and it wasn't available on in Libby except for the print copy. When I did a deep search, they were like, notify me if you want it. But I was just like, I got it on Audible by now. But
Yeah.
he did a lot of like collabos with James Patterson. So wow. 2022. That's awesome.
Yeah, this is his best work probably, or his best work based on the amount of reviews,
Views,
right?
yeah. Yeah.
He might have some other good stuff in there, but to be honest, I'm kind of like at the point where I don't want to ruin a good thing.
Nope.
So I'm not going
Nope.
back.
Nope.
I might read his next new book.
Onward.
Right. But I'm not going to read his
We've
back
already done
catalog.
that before.
Mhm. And it failed. It failed the last time we did that.
Yes. Nope. Onward.
Onward and upward.
Yep. We're gonna stick with where look, this is a good starting point.
Yes.
And that's where we're gonna go.
Yeah, he's on our radar now. So
Man. Yeah. This was a good February started,
yeah,
because
it was a
last
good
year,
start.
yeah.
We were better this year, this February than last February.
Man. Girl, I was so
um,
happy. I'm just gonna say I was just happy.
Let me say the narrators, Will Dameron, Hillary Huber, Elizabeth, I can't remember,
Garrett?
Garrett, and then Steve West.
Mhm.
I've listened to all of those narrators before.
Have you?
And I interviewed Will Dameron on Shelf Addiction years ago.
What? And I know you noticed at the end that they'd let us know who was who.
Yes, that's what I noted. Penguin Audio had the cast.
I think we
They
mentioned
had the
that too, that they're
cast.
good with that. Yeah, I think it was another book where I love that.
Yeah.
You're gonna make me go back and look at these narrators to see if I listen to anything. Were any of them from our buddy reads or just books you've read
So let
before?
me just do a quick look. Yeah, so Will Dameron, he did The Bride too. Oh, cool.
Looks like fantasy, right?
Yeah. So, Beneath a Scarlet Sky, listened to that back when I interviewed him.
Okay.
And that was like a big thing in 2017 that Mark Sullivan wrote. And that was actually historical,
Oh,
but
okay.
it was very good.
Okay.
And so Hillary Huber,
Yeah.
she's done Alona Andrews that I've read or
Okay.
listened to.
Yeah, I'm looking at it too. I've listened to her through Pretty Things by Janelle Brown.
Mm-hmm.
One of Us is Dead, Geneva Rose.
Mm-hmm.
And come on, I thought I saw one more. She has a nice catalog. I think that might be the only ones I've read with her. Who's the other person? Elizabeth Garrett.
Now, I don't think I've heard. Now, okay, so Steve West, if you did those fantasy books with us, like the year before last, we did An Ember in the Ashes.
Oh yeah, I do
That
remember.
trilogy, Steve West did the male voice in all of those books.
Oh, Steve West.
Yeah. So A Sky Beyond the Storm, those four. It was four books.
Okay.
Reaper at the Gates, that grouping of
Hmm.
books. That's where I recognize his name. But Elizabeth Garrett, now that I'm looking,
Yeah, I haven't heard her voice. When I look at her catalog, she seems to do romance or erotica.
yeah, now that I'm looking at her, I'm like, I don't think I've listened to Elizabeth Garrett
Oh, is that
before.
Saba Tahir? Is that what you were saying with Steve West, The Sky
Yep.
Beyond the Storm? I don't know
Hmm.
if I said her name correctly, but yeah, her. It looks like he does a lot of John Mars books too. I think someone recommended one of those books to us in the group.
Mm.
John Mars. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, I enjoyed. I mean, if now that we're talking about narration, I didn't. They were all on point to me.
Yeah, they were all good.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is that the cadence of all of them, the speed of all of them was almost the same
Yeah.
because I was listening pretty fast. And you know how sometimes if one person reads faster than the other, it's like, whoa, it starts to sound funny.
Yes. Wonky.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it was smooth for
Yeah.
all of them. So they were all kind of at the same
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
speed. You like they're using a
Exactly.
metronome or something. They were all the same.
Yes. Yeah, it was. It
Yeah.
was the production was great. Yeah. I I enjoyed this. I
Yeah,
really
me too.
did.
So, is there anything like I know we kind of like did not exactly explain the plot to you guys. We kind of
Oh,
jumped all over. We didn't
damn.
really go step by step or anything. We kind of just went for the stuff we liked.
Yes.
So, I think this conversation is probably best heard if you've listened to the book or read the book.
Yeah, sorry guys. I
Yeah,
think we
we're
just got so excited that we got a good book. Sorry.
yeah. So hopefully you were able to get something out of it. We were all over the place, but it's fine. It was fun. It was fun for us.
Sis.
Yeah, it was fun for us.
Yeah, it really was. It's a great cat and mouse. And I mean, it's just so many twists and turns in this book that I don't know if us explaining it will give it justice. You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of one of those stories where you really need to kind of just delve into it because if we do, I mean, granted, we do spoilers, but it's just so many twists and turns in this
Yeah,
story. Yeah.
there was a lot we did not even talk about. So there's just so much
Mhm.
there, because so many details. Like I was saying, there's a lot of detail into like setting this whole thing up.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then at the end there, so I do want to talk about the end real fast. So Simon does love Vicky. He loves her a lot.
Mhm.
But Vicky is so damaged, she like, I cannot be with anybody. But if I were to be with somebody, it would be him, but it's not gonna be. So
Yeah.
I was wondering if he would act crazy or do something crazy at the end, and thankfully he didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thankfully, because I'm like, well, I'm kind of happy with that ending.
Well, because he said that she saved him. That's something that I really remember throughout the story is he kind of mentioned how much she saved him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it seems like from a dark place. So it's like they will always have that love for each other, but
Mm-hmm.
but not together.
And
But
he
I
saved her too. Like
Mhm.
he basically forced her to go to rehab.
Yeah. Yeah. So they were good for each other, but just in more of a friendly, but not what's the one word? Gosh, I had it on the tip of my tongue. But yeah, they can be called on for anything. If he needs her, she will be there.
Yeah,
And vice versa.
that's exactly what happened,
Mhm.
honestly. So at the end, Vicky was talking about how she planned to kill Christian anyway. She's like, I'm going to kill his ass. I'm going to go to Chicago and kill him. But he was trying to talk her out of it. He wanted her to let it go. She wasn't going to.
Yeah.
And then when Simon saw what's her damn name again?
Lauren.
Lauren, he calls her. He's like, dude, Vicky, I saw that hoe. We gonna work together.
In tandem, guess what? We're gonna kill two birds with one stone.
Oh yeah. And so that's how that came together. And they did a lot of work, like
Yeah.
putting that whole plan together. They were even careful about her not being seen with him.
Mhm.
There was so much thought.
Yeah.
That that
Yeah.
makes me feel like David Ellis knows how to get away with murder. As the show says, you know how to get away with murder, Mr. Ellis.
Yeah. And that was that one
Yeah.
chapter, I don't know which chapter it was. It was close to the end where he's talking about the case with cell phones and the history and the tracking and it kind of just culminated the whole story of, because I think she mentioned, the detective mentioned, but does the killer know that, you can track cell phone history, this far back? And they were like, but does Simon know
The
this?
Simon, no, of course he does. This is what he talks about, the
And then
Fourth
he
Amendment.
does a damn lecture on it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
God
He writes
dang
a
it.
blog about it.
Mm-hmm.
He knows the ins and outs.
Yeah, the
He like,
intricacies.
yeah, I do. So what? So what? What you
Prove
gonna
it.
do?
Prove it. Yeah.
Now, if I had to critique one thing, I wish, and I mean, I don't remember getting a lot of description about Jane.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh, the detective,
or
yeah.
I
Or
just
sergeant.
wish that he had some color in here,
Yeah, because I
some
wasn't the
black characters or Asian characters or something.
only person I believe was of color was his colleague at the beginning. Is it Abdul or somebody? I wish I just, well, I couldn't have written his
It
name
must have
down.
been like a one-liner because I barely remember. He was
Oh,
the one
no.
telling him that he didn't wear suits and he
Yes.
looked young. So
Yes.
that was like literally a couple pages at the
Yeah,
beginning.
right. And I'm not sure if he was of Indian descent or African because he described his hair as bristle, like a bristle brush. So I was
That
like,
don't count. That was in and out.
yeah, but that was the only person of color, I believe, in the book. So I'm assuming, well, it's not, I'm going to assume he was a minority if he had that kind
Yeah,
of
he's a
hair.
POC at the very least,
Yeah.
but that's not enough
No.
for me.
Yeah, and like you
So,
said, in Jean or Jane was very nondescript. None
yeah,
of the police officers, to be honest. We
yeah,
had
none of
no
them.
clue of their ethnicity at all. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I agree. I had wrote that
So,
down too, that I wasn't sure that was the only character. Everybody else was white,
yeah, and we
very
know because
Anglo.
how they look, they have that typical, as you would expect a good-looking white person to be, right?
Mhm. Yep, with
Uh,
money. Yep.
yeah, with
Blonde,
my yeah,
thin, yoga, tennis, that neighborhood, yep, all that.
yeah,
And then he jogged in the poor neighborhood who struggled. I was like,
he jogged through
I
here.
was just like, now that
Yeah.
was you wanna talk about an eye roll?
But you know what? Looking from his, Mr. Ellis's,
Let me
information here, he's affluent himself. So he wrote what he
Yes,
knows.
exactly. He did. He wrote
He
what he
didn't
knew.
stretch at all. He
No.
just the one POC that he knew in law school,
And
he
you know
wrote.
And that's probably it. And that's that one black or color friend that he had. So you know
Right.
what? You're right. Why am I
So if I
expecting
had to
anything else?
nitpick, that's something that was missing.
Yeah. And the jogging through the struggle neighborhood. I
Mhm.
love jogging through here because these people, they fight for what they want. They're struggling. I'm just like, if you don't get your ass and hurry
Get
run
your
through, because the police would be like, "What are you doing here?" I was like, and I would be too.
Get out of
You
here.
didn't get
Get
robbed.
your ass back to the country club. Get out.
You didn't get robbed. Nobody stuck your ass up. Talking about some you love jogging through. Get your ass out this damn neighborhood. If that was
See,
your one little click mark, thank God it
yeah.
was brief.
And the
Cause
Obama masks don't count either.
shit. So that's 3 little marks. No
So,
POC, Obama, and you're jogging through the damn struggle hood.
yeah. So that's the thing though. No book is really perfect.
No. And he wrote what he knew.
Yeah, and I give him credit for that. Obviously, he knows the law very well. And again, I do believe that he could get away with murder. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
Just
I do
saying.
too.
Don't come for me.
I think you're right.
I got some Vicky in me. That's all I'm gonna say. Don't come.
I felt the same way that he could get away with murder and yeah. What did it say? Like life is stranger than fiction. You're just like,
Hmm.
But I mean, if he's a lawyer and seen enough cases, and I loved How to Get Away with Murder.
Me too.
Oof,
That was one of my favorite shows.
girl, scandal. Yeah, but this
Hmm.
was a good story, and I enjoyed it. Like you said, except for those 3 little issues. Um, David Ellis, if you have something coming out in the future, you will be on my list to read.
Yeah. Okay, so last thing. Let's rate it. Let's rate the book.
I'm gonna let you go first. You go first.
Okay, I would rate Look Closer a solid 4 out of 5. I really liked it. It was okay, so it was a bang on entry and then it was kind of medium paced, medium to slow paced until we got to a turning point and then things got really interesting. And again, you've heard the couple of issues I had. So 4 is really good rating from me. I definitely recommend it. And I think this would be a good book club book too for other book clubs as well. Lots to talk about. What
Yeah.
about you, Classy?
Yeah, man, it was getting to be a 5, but like you were saying, there were just the pacing, because this is like what, 400? Was this 400 something pages? Well, it was a
Yes.
15-hour damn book.
Yeah.
But it was worth it.
Mhm.
The pacing did get a little slow, but you got to hang in there.
Mhm.
And there are a few plot holes, not potholes, plot holes.
Mhm.
Um, and those other issues that we discussed, but a solid 4.
Mhm.
Um, thoroughly enjoyed the ride. Banging entry or best. It can I just digress just a little?
Mhm.
And you and I, we went to Thriller Fest last year. And
Right.
after sitting through some of those sessions, at first it was just like, oh, these are just for writers, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of that we went through, I'm beginning to see when I read, like that first sentence. I think we went to
Yes.
one of the workshop was like that first sentence or that first chapter or whatever, and how important it is. And I know some people were just like, but this one is a prime example of that first sentence or that first chapter or those first paragraphs. The
Hmm.
way he starts this book just draws you in. Granted, it does
Yeah.
get slow, but
But that's the point of having a really strong entry. If
yeah.
it's strong enough, people will wait. They will
Mhm.
know, like, they'll be like, "Oh my god, so I have to find out what happened," and they will
Yeah.
wade through the other parts to
Yeah.
get back to the juicy parts.
Yeah, it was like a series. It was like,
Yeah.
it wasn't just a quick 2-hour movie. This was maybe a 2, 3, I'll say a 2, 3
This could have been a
episode.
mini series.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, but that's what I was thinking about, like, when we went there to some of these different workshops and just listening to the structure of writing a book and how these authors, their craft,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
you really do begin to enjoy true craftsmanship, and he
Mhm.
did that. But yeah, a solid 4, great narration, great production. It was a good book. Highly
Yes.
recommend it. Yeah, and like you said, this is a great book club book. There are so many things that we didn't even delve into.
Mhm. So I
So
can't wait to talk about this with the Shelf Addiction Book Club
yeah, I can't
because
either.
I know our our crew will
Well,
have
oh
things to
gosh,
say.
they're gonna dissect this
Yes.
piece by piece. So yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready for our book club meeting for this one. But yeah, solid 4. I was almost at a 5, and then it's just like, but I'm happy that we started
Look,
off
you
with a
know me,
4.
I can't just let everything be roses and
No,
candy. I can't
yeah,
do it.
no, yeah. The more I sat on it too, it was just like, there's a few little things, but to start
Yeah,
off with a 4,
that's really good.
yeah,
I'll be
we
back
need
for
we
your
need
next
we
one.
need our curve to keep going up.
Yeah. Okay, we challenge you, David Ellis. Make your next book a 5 for
Yes,
us. You
yes,
can do it.
yes.
We
And
believe
even
in
if you
you.
get a 4, we're good. We're good, but we
Yeah, it's
want a
true.
5.
Yeah, we do want a 5.
Yeah.
Ugh, I'm itching for the 5. I still haven't hit one this year yet.
No, me either. A historical one, but yes, but my mystery, thriller, suspense, no.
No. Mm. Okay, I think we'll end things there. You guys, if you want to hear the rest of our conversation today, then you'll need to subscribe on Patreon or on Spreaker and check out the after show. We'll talk to you guys next time. Take care of yourselves. Bye, guys.
Bye.
If you enjoyed today's episode and would like to show your support, there are a few things you can do. Head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a positive 5-star review, or like this episode on your favorite podcast player. It seems so simple, but it really helps me out. You can share this podcast with other book nerd friends or on your favorite social media space. You can also join the Shelf Addiction Patreon family. For as little as $2 a month, you will help us produce even more awesome content for your ears. You can also consider joining the Shelf Addiction official Facebook group, where we talk all things bookish and more in a safe space. The Shelf Addiction podcast is a part of the Nerdy Maven Network. You can also reach us via email at info@shelfaddiction.com. Thank you for listening.